And thank you very much for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are located. My name is Hugo Bruset. I'm a social protection specialist at the PI, working at the World Bank. And I am very glad to be your host for the next parallel session, which will focus on critical design decisions at early stages of scaling up economic inclusion programs. So we're going to have really vibrant and exciting session with two main country speakers presenting their experiences actually about the trade-offs and the decisions behind scaling up these programs in their own experiences. We also want to share with you that this session, similar as the rest of the event, is also available for you to take it on Spanish, English, Arabic, and French. So you just have to go to the little icon, the globe icon on the right of your screen, and select the language that you want to use. Also, we will be using as part of the session a Mentimeter poll that will allow us to connect with you and also ask about your views in terms of like the most important aspects for scaling up these programs. So let me introduce very quickly the great panel that we have for the session. First of all, we will be accompanied by Dr. Atef Elshabrawy. He is the program director for FORSA and advisor for the Ministry of Social Solidarity of Egypt. So welcome, Dr. Atef, and happy to have you with us. Also, the second presenter today will be Mr. Fazlul Kader. He's the Deputy Managing Director for the Palikarma Sahayak Foundation, PKSF. Thank you also, Mr. Kader, for joining us. And we will have a featured discussant, who will be Aline Kurel. She's a lead social protection specialist at the World Bank, who also will bring a lot of experience in accompanying these early stages in program design. So I wanted to share with you a couple of slides before passing into the panel to a little bit provide some framing for the discussion today. I hope you can see the screen now. Yes. So in terms of, like the trade-offs behind shaping a program design and implementation for economic inclusion, one of the first important aspects to bear in mind is like, what are the different aspects that could actually, impact the decisions behind scaling up this program. So the main overall objective for economic and productive inclusion, as we were hearing even as part of the beginning of the event, is basically increasing revenues and access to economic opportunities for the poor and extreme poor. But we can have different aspects that could actually impact taking up these decisions, especially at an early stages, right? That could go actually from external conditions that are related to the political acceptability for these programs, related also to the leadership capacities, policy priorities, poverty levels, and economic profiles. On the other hand, there are also kind of a more internal type of decisions for program design, which will have to, which will be related to the specific program objectives, which will be basically the vehicles of, trying to achieve the overall outcome of increasing revenues and accessing to better economic opportunities. Selecting more specific target populations, we can think about maybe, programs that actually are targeting the youth or displaced populations or women, and also the specific package or bundling interventions, the combo of the different components that will form the economic inclusion programs in each case. Related to that, there are also some aspects that actually go back and forth between these kind of more external and internal conditions, which will be related to the financing that is available, the institutional arrangements for delivery, the community dynamics, which are very important, and the social norms, which will provide the vehicles for scaling up these interventions. And finally, one point that was also mentioned this morning, which are the entry points to scale up these programs. Let me emphasize very quickly on these 3 main entry points. And this is information that actually comes from our flagship State of Economic Inclusion report that we just launched at PEI, which is basically points at the importance of having a foundational intervention. For example, a safety net program, a livelihoods and jobs program, or a financial inclusion program that are at the base of the expansion of economic inclusion or productive inclusion programs. And as you can see in the graph, we see that there is a lot of momentum, especially for government-led economic inclusion programs that are gaining traction and using a lot of the advantages, for example, from type of safety net programs and interventions as these foundational and entry points. We will hear different the differences in different the countries that we will present today that are using actually different interventions as these entry points. Finally, I wanted to leave you with this diversity in terms of objectives and components that we have actually assessed as part of the SEI report. As you can see, the formula will vary depending on the context, but we can see that there are cases in which some components are prioritized. For example, skills training component, coaching, transfers, and also a diversity in terms of the specific objectives of the programs. So with this, I would like to start passing the floor to the panel, but first we would like to share the first Menti poll for you to reflect on your own experiences. I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen. Okay, thank you. So you can use a separate device or just go to menti.com and use the code that you can see there, which is 54873962. And let us know about, in your view, what are the most important design priorities for governments when developing these nascent economic inclusion programs. So we see a lot of people is providing a lot of importance in target groups, program components as well as the second priority. Very interesting. And we can also reflect a little bit on your own experiences while we open up the panel for the session for a discussion and Q&A. Thank you very much. So with that, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Atef Elshabrawy, the program director for Forza, who will give us the first presentation on Egypt for 15 minutes. So Dr. Atef, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hugo, for your introduction. Great insight before the presentation. I would like to start by thanking the PEI for the great sharing knowledge exchange and forums and the report of economic inclusion, which gives a lot of insight. I'm very honored to be here today to talk about the experience of the Ministry of Social Solidarity in Egypt and the Egyptian Program for Economic Empowerment. In fact, to be back little to give an idea about the program itself, Egypt launched in 2015 a big program of social safety net, big cash condition cash transfer program, which named Takafu and Karama, which target from one side the poor families with children under 18 years in terms of program Takafu. Takafu in Arabic means solidarity, and elder people who are elder and disabled people who are within Karama. Karama is dignity. The program, in fact, is a transfer base provided to household depends on a number of children in terms of Takafu and Karama. Within the time, after about 5 or 6 years of implementation, we find that the pool of people beneficiary of the Takafu and Karama goes up to the 3.6 million families, represents about 15 million beneficiary. We have about 13 million individuals who are rejected, but still in our database as they are applying and didn't get it. If we look deeply in the data of the program, we find about 70% of the beneficiary are in Upper Egypt. I will show you the map of Egypt now to know that Upper Egypt is the south of Egypt. We have about approximately 80% of the holder of the cash transfer are women. Among that kind of, in fact, 41% of the beneficiary currently are in working age. And this is alarming sign for us that 41% of those people are working age. So the cause of getting the welfare and the cash transfer was either they don't have a job, they are very low wages, and they are not able to cover. So about 62% the rate of illiteracy among them, which is also a challenge to find them a proper job. Just to mention that Egypt is spending about 1.3 billion US dollar annually on the program of Takafu and Karama. So if we would like to go for what we have thought about how to tackle the challenge of having 41% of people who are getting the cash transfer as in working age. So we said that in Forza program, we'll try to make a cut with a traditional way of empowering program where we have small pieces and we design an ecosystem. So the expression of ecosystem, I will keep repeated during the presentation, means that we are thinking about gathering together the whole system of empowering. So the objective of the ecosystem to support the Takafu and Karama beneficiary and low-income youth and women particularly to integrate into successful economic activity through innovation and sustainable partnership. We wish, as Dr. Abajir mentioned in the beginning, that we talk about sustainability of the program. So our major objective is to have a sustainable partnership, sustainable income generating activity successful with a partnership of NGO, private sector, as well as global partner. If we look to the right-hand figure, which represents the sample of the process of Forza program, we read it from up to down. From up, we have the database of the Takafu and Karama, where we target people who are eligible to have to participate. We set eligibility for inclusion and exclusion of people. We start by grouping them into what we call it behavior change and nudge session. We know that people within certain time of receiving cash transfer, they go into what we call it comfort zone, and sometimes they are not extremely enthusiastic to go through empowering initiatives. So we designed a kind of session. After that session, people will give their own decision on participating on the program. So all the participation will be by the decision of the beneficiary himself. Once we register them as they are willing to participate, we go for getting the profiling and to understand well their background and their capabilities and skills. Then we divided them into two parts. Normally, if we like to empower someone, we have either to find him a job. So we call it wage employment. So we establish a system where we can find the jobs in the area where they are living, and we can join their skills and kind of job placement. So we look for their skills and how they are far from the required skills, and we do the necessary training. And if there are no jobs in the area where they are living, so we think about income generating activity by asset transfer, and we designed the asset transfer to be through value chain and group enterprising. And as usual, we train them on the asset and start to deliver the asset for them and to make them working in a group. We target the Forza program 15,000 beneficiary within about 2 years. 55,000 beneficiary will have their own self-employment opportunity, and 15 will be having a job. In fact, the main essence of the Forza program is to be able to graduate those people from the cash transfer and let them live in a decent life. I thought about the session, and in giving more details about the design. So we have here about 5 points when we would like to understand how Forza is different from other programs. First, we are focusing on the ecosystem base, where we are mobilizing comprehensive services delivered by the governmental offices, NGO, and private sector. So here we merge three together from the beginning to ensure that we have a sustainable system. We also mobilize what we call it social workers and youth volunteering mentors who are helping those people to be as their coach and mentor for a longer time than the program. The second, the use of the large social protection database. We have a database about 30 million individuals who are giving us a guide for the targeting policy, which enabling us to select about 70% of our participants from the current beneficiary and 30% from the rejected who are already registered in the system. We have kind of a smart geographic coverage. As you see the map of Egypt, we have the Upper Egypt, where we have about 6 governorates. We selected 8 governorates. 6 in the Upper Egypt were the most difficult and the more poor areas, and we also 2 governorates in the Delta, where we have more of empowering economic activity and industrial activity. And so the fourth point is a continuous cash transfer. Forza program will enable people to go through the gate of the Forza to the workplace to find a job or to get an asset, but will not stop directly the cash transfer. We will enable them to continue benefiting the cash transfer for 6 to 12 months, which gives them a lot of incentive. And last point, market-driven initiative, where we design form of value chain and group supporting directly linked to the local opportunities and need. In fact, to ensure the sustainability of the initiative. So the 6 or the 5 points here resume the main essence of the Forza program. If you look for the key areas of the program implementation, we're starting by to the left by the selecting and targeting the beneficiary and the governorates at the left upper part. Then we go for the rapid market assessment. We do it by ourselves, by our experts, analyzing the market needs in the areas where we are intervening. So we identify first the opportunity and the business model of even a micro enterprise which will support. So we are enlarging the chances of having a successful micro enterprise in this area. We are starting designing a nudge session where we are incentivizing and giving people more information, as well as giving nudge to go for the workplace and to have that spirit of challenge and defy their condition. Then we have a kind of a system of employment, not only training but placement, and this is new in Egypt, where we have to be the element to create within the Directorate of the Ministry of Social Solidarities, which is covering the Egyptian territories, small offices where we have links with private sector, we have links with the market opportunities of employment, where we can come back and look for our database and find the suitable people and make the business matching or the job matching. We have also value chain based asset transfer. So we design our partners with the FAO, with WFB, with technical people, what are the most successful value chain of the asset which we transfer. And instead of giving individually, we give it collectively. So we are solving partially the problem of marketing and problem of mass scale. We go for the shared production unit. In case of not finding a suitable value chain in the area, we can make small factories, small units, which will employ between 30 to 50 persons. And these production units will be basically based on the agribusiness opportunities in the rural area in Egypt, where we have plenty of opportunity. We also we already created kind of local and national network of personal support and mentors. We design it with a youth association, kind of having in each governorate 200 volunteers or youth who are trained to be coach and mentor for those people. And we end by having a good platform for placement, as well as businesses, e-business for the people who are producing handicraft and handmade item from our client. And if you like to see the institutional arrangement, we enforce a program, as we mentioned as well. The sustainability will come from the who are the players in the area where we are implementing. We don't implement the program by our full staff of the ministry or the governmental staff. We focus on having implementing agencies who are the champion in the area and the localities where they are. We design the program and we contract with them to have much smaller CDIs and community development organization who are in the small villages. So we have a structure where we design the objective, we design the asset, we design how to deliver, and we bring a partner to deliver it under our control. And we have Minister of Social Solidarity as an owner, but we have private sector. Each of our initiatives are linked to private sector. We decided to have all our system is linked to private sector to ensure the professionalism and sustainability. We didn't forget the international organization from where we gain a lot of experience. We have a lot of collaboration with ILO, FAO, WFP. I mean, technically, where we design the program, we design with a good background. And if you look for the extreme right hand down here, the governorate where we are implementing, we have exactly the same structure in each governorate, small office agency of within the ministry office, which is a new creation, which is belonging to the central unit, and we manage all the show from this. So people who don't have to come, don't have to displace, even that they are not digitalized. We can have 3 layers of participants, social work, volunteers, and our staff. So if you look for people who are willing to understand the program, some of the results we are talking about, that we design it and validate the program. In fact, we did at the beginning, when we designed it, a big participatory serial of workshops with private sector, with NGOs to find suitable value chain, job placement, training schemes, and the provider. The second, we designed and testing behavior change and nudge session. It was very interesting to have that nudge session because we did a small trial before starting, and we find that a huge number of people are not willing to enroll easy before that session. So we designed a session. We are enrolling currently a session for about 130,000 participants in Egypt. This is a huge number, first in the history of economic empowerment, because we are linking the entry to the program with a session. So everyone wants to be in the session, in the Forza program should pass by the session, by the behavior change. The third point will be creating a local and decentralized Forza offices, which I mentioned. So the ministry itself now has a shared mirror of the structure in localities, which is guaranteeing the sustainability in terms of governmental staff. Rapid and extensive market assessment. We do all the steps. We did it by experts, so we are cutting the way in front of the problem of making a lot of businesses, micro businesses, are not successful and asking for marketing or whatever support later on. Creating a national network of economic empowerment volunteers. As I mentioned, we have about 2,500 youth nationally and 200 in each governorate. Finalizing the process of contracting with NGOs. Now we designed the system and we are contracting now with NGOs, preparing the MIS with a digitalized platform, and all the operation will be digitalized. So if we stop quickly for the key challenges and lessons, I know that the time is very limited, but I will focus in our key challenges. In fact, the first, that we are trying to achieve a societal mind shift towards a sustainable economic empowerment instead of charity. I mean, we have a challenge in some societies where we deal with poor people, as exactly Abajir mentioned in the introduction, that some people dealing with the poor people like a problem. Here we try to make that sustainable way, mind shift of the society, that we have to have an economic empowerment activity which is sustainable. It's not charity-based. It's not $1 for one use. The second is to achieving sustainable behavior change of the cash transfer beneficiary themselves, who are getting little less interest to work and lazy in this comfort zone. The third is assuring readiness of enough qualified NGOs. You know, when we are massively implementing a program which targeting 50,000 beneficiary, we need a lot of in 8 governorates and huge territory. So we need qualified NGOs and private sector interested to collaborate all over the territory, which is a challenge. And last point, assuring the successful implementation of the design initiative during COVID-19, which we'll talk about later on. You know that due to COVID-19, we have a problem of social distance and partial lockdown, and all our program was based on having the session of behavior change, which designed to be 40 to 50% participating. And due to the COVID-19 and social distance, we cut it into pieces, and it took much time to gather the amount of people who should be enrolled in the program. And we hope that COVID-19 crisis will go through and we end this story of waves. And if we interested by the lesson learned.
With apologies, but if you could wrap up maybe in 1 minute.
Yeah, that's the last one. So the lesson learned from our program are a lot, but rethinking the institutional setup of the economic empowerment program within the governmental structure, because we are coming on the top of the governmental structure with previous work, rethinking the future enrollment of people who are in working age and cash transfer, because later on they are not so easy to get them out, and innovating financial resources. If we stop by the takeaway, I will just mention that we are our program is based on a variety of innovative aspects like nudging, like value chain, like group work. We are facing a substantial problem of the COVID-19 to do that social distance and not being able to have a huge number of people in some sessions and going all the villages and making the knock-door system as well. Last point I would like to mention that we are in that second point here, the market-driven based initiative is enabling the economic empowerment initiative to be linked to private sector and having a more sustainable life in terms of profitability of people. People can make much more profit out of the micro enterprise if the micro enterprise is within a value chain, and also in terms of turnover and all of this. So it makes the economic empowerment initiative more easy for the government to implement it and much successful for the beneficiary. And thank you for your time and for your attention. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My time. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Atef. Thank you for a very, very engaging presentation. Let me jump then to the next presentation. Mr. Kader, Deputy Managing Director from PKSF. The floor is yours for 15 minutes.
Thank you, Hugo. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Start. Let me say something about PKSF. PKSF is basically a second-tier organization. That means established by the government of Bangladesh. That means we don't work directly at the field level. We work through institutions which are called microfinance institutions. At the moment, we have a coverage of about close to 15 million households at the grassroots level. You can see we are all over in Bangladesh, and through over 10,000 branches, we provide different kinds of services, including microfinance services. The core programs of PKSF, these are continuous programs. So these are financial inclusion program, which is popularly known as microfinance program, but this is a very segmented program. We have different kind of microfinance programs. Enterprise development, human capacity development, and these are the other programs we have. These programs, the very nature of these programs are they're continuous in nature. And we take projects that can strengthen our continuous programs only. And let me show you some of the examples how we integrate non-financial services with our continuous financial inclusion program. For example, in the northern part of the Bangladesh, we have lowland, and during the flood season, the houses used to go under the water and the people have to be shifted beside the roads. And what we did in order to integrate them with the market, we raised their plinths. And you can see how we raised the plinths there. You can see the lowland here, and we raised the plinths so that during the flood season, the houses do not go under the water. And you can see the raised plinths, how they and during the flood, it's above the waterline. You can see it becomes like an island, but still they can carry on their economic activities, and we provide them with other services like they can rear goats, lambs, and other things. At the same time, through boats, they can come to the market and sell their products and do other things. And these are for the ultra poor. We have got a definition of ultra poor in the country. And the second one is mud crab farming. In the context of climate change, this program has become very popular in Bangladesh. And we have provided various kind of technical services so that they can export. People in Bangladesh, they don't eat crab that much, but we export basically to China. And per head cost was $29 for this particular project intervention. The kind of interventions we provided is good practice of crab fattening of crabs. At the same time, crab hatchery technology is the first of its kind in South Asia. And we link them with the market so that they can sell their products at a good price. At the same time, different kinds of crab fattening technologies we teach them. So the results is, you can see, I mean, most of their income has increased very significantly. You can see here, and crab mortality rate decreased by 30%, average income increased, this and that, you can see. Second, and some of the pictures you can see, and their profit increased by 97% as a result of the intervention. And they are hooked with the microfinance program so that after the project is over, they can carry on their activities and can scale up with the help of additional financing. Community-based tourism. We call ecotourism in a very remote island of in Bay of Bengal. We introduced for the first time, and homestay services. We are inspired by Airbnb. In the poor people's house, the tourists can stay there overnight. And as a result, the number of tourists in that particular zone was 30,000 earlier. But for our intervention, this has increased per year to 90,000 till now. And people, they can stay in and various other services. I mean, as a result, the entire community's income has increased tremendously. You can see some of the homestays. These are very poor people's house, and we provided them some grant money coupled with their own investment. They improved the conditions so that tourists can stay overnight there. And through a platform, Facebook-based platform and other e-commerce platforms, they can get these houses rented. Results you can see, I've already told you. And you can see a woman, she's a third gender. We have provided them boats and other things. Initially, we gave them grant so that other people, when they get interested, they see that there's a scope for income enhancement, they can get the boats through loan. And the loan is always available for the newcomers who want to enter as tour guides there in the mangrove forest. Third one is the natural fish breeding in Halda River. Halda River is a unique river. This is the biggest natural fish breeding ground in the world for carp. And for different kind of pollution, this was facing tremendous challenge. As a result of our intervention, we have intervened in terms of policy advocacy, at the same time created alternative opportunity for tobacco growers. The tobacco growers, they used to pollute the river, at the same time brood conservation and other things. And as a result, you can see it was in the national daily news, our intervention in 2006, when we started making the intervention, the egg, total amount of egg was only 735 kg. And now in this last year, within just 4 years, it has a record-breaking production of more than 25,000 kg of fishlings. And then the intervention in honey beekeepers, for beekeepers. And as you know that with the total intervention cost was per unit of beneficiary was $48 only. We provided various kind of services like training them, queen bee productions and improved queen bee production center. We even called upon the international experts from Croatia and Australia. They trained them. and we provided other services, how to maintain the tracing facilities and other things. As a result, the net income increased by 49%, and they have now their own brands now, and they have started exporting to countries like Japan and other countries. And we are going forward with this project so that, I mean, they can further brand it like Manuka honey. And then you can see the imitation jewelry sector, subsector in Bangladesh. This is very popular. And then the per participant cost was $145. We trained them especially to diversify their products with improved designs. And at the same time, we started financing them and get them linked with the market, wider national market. We trained them in India also, in Jaipur. And at the same time, we were, for COVID, we couldn't send them to China as well, but we have planned to do that. And as a result, you can see their income increased by 40%, and the diversity has taken place in their product. The quality improved very significantly. And enhancing productivity of mini ready-made garments enterprise. These are micro enterprises, and total participants were 10,300, and per unit cost, per beneficiary cost was $52 only. And you can see the interventions we made through supply, I mean, in order to enhance their productivity and capacity in improving their designs. We have provided them various common service facilities. Interesting thing is this, all the common service facilities is done by micro enterprises. We promoted we gave them incentive like provided them interest loans with lower interest rate, and at the same time made them familiar with the machines and other things. And for the first time, we introduced their line management and other things. As a result, you can see the 15,000 jobs created in the mini RMG sector in the northern part of the country. It's in a district, it's not the big RMG sector. These are micro enterprises, and their income increased significantly, and they have got access to enhanced finance on a continuous basis. Transformation of manual-based loom into power loom. In that part of the country, the looms were manual looms. We transformed them through a very tricky system. I mean, we demonstrated the power-based looms, and as a result, the entire business cluster was transformed within 3.5 hours into power loom-based business cluster. And you can see the results, immediate results was very good. I mean, close to 10,000 jobs were created. Their income increased by 200%. And the workforce, due to line management system, the women participation in employment in the mini garment sector increased tremendously. And then promotion of medicinal plant through agricultural microenterprise. You can see different kind of medicinal plants we have promoted. As a result, there's diversity and different kinds of brands of emerged in the country. Automobile engineering sector, same thing we have done in order to increase we transfer technology. And as a result, that cluster in Jashore, in the southwestern part of the country, their productivity increased tremendously. And their income increased by more than 62%. And you can see promoting environmentally sustainable footwear enterprises. Some of the pictures, you can see how dirty this was. And we have turned this solid waste into resource. And now they can use this waste and they can produce soles and other things through microenterprises. We trained them and made them familiar. You can see how we analyze the value chains and intervene in order to do that. And 360 tons of waste used to be produced in that area. Now they import waste from Dhaka city in order to make make different kinds of products. So basically, we transfer technology and enhance their access to finance, and demonstrated many things like common service facilities, manual line management system, computer-based designing system, those kind of things. You can see computer-based design system, and from waste they are producing all these cells. We have got about more than 5,000 mini micro enterprises in that particular area. And we can see the toilets for the employees, the laborers there. These are the common service facilities we intervene them in. So the desired impact is they will have their brand eventually. This project it's a World Bank Finance project. This is not yet finished, and we hope that new brands will come at the end of the project. Transforming subsistence dairy farming into environmentally sustainable commercial dairy. This whole area we used to call it capital of cow dung. So dirty, and then these cow dungs were transformed into vermicompost. And the vermicompost through micro enterprises, vermicompost is a hot cake in Bangladesh for vegetable production. And you can see how we did this and all through, this is a business we provide, and they also provide biopesticide from the cow urine. You can see some of
Kader, sorry, just a quick reminder, you have 4 minutes left to wrap up.
And the fodders you can see. And in that particular dairy zone, they have now their own brands of different dairy products. And they obtain certificates with tracing facilities. So this disease management, and you can see how they're selling the vermicompost. And this is our skill development project. And under the skill development project, we hook them with the employment sector by providing employment service facilities, employment placement services. We trained about 21,000 people, young people, and out of which you can see that 14,000 were employed in the formal sector and 4,600 were employed in the non-formal sector, whom we'll finance. The critical design decisions. This is the second last slide, so don't worry, Hugo. And this is the what we learned from all these things. Number one, PKSF followed an institution building approach. So we provide all these services through microfinance institution, and they outsource under our supervision different services from the market. And so that they can provide these services on a continuous basis. And after the enhanced capability of the targeted population, they can have access to finance on a continuous basis to scale up. And the targeted populations are very well defined. And you know that Bangladesh is famous for microfinance. So, and then financial inclusion of participants, the financial inclusion program is perpetual in nature. And we always seek for market-based solution. Interventions are made in response to demand only. We avoid supply-led programs. Only non-revenue generating social sector investments are financed through grant instruments. Interventions are designed following environmental and social safeguard framework. Non-credit services are offered to business clusters only, micro-enterprise business clusters, to reduce cost and ultra-poor or poverty-stricken special geographical areas and vulnerable groups of population. And we also work on bringing down the risk so that we can provide them risk mitigation services on a continuous basis, like through microinsurance. The last slide is the challenges we are envisaging in the coming, in the near future. Management and technical skills of micro entrepreneurs. We have to enhance that. Capacity of service providers. We need to work on that so that they can keep on providing value chain services, including technology transfer, tracing, branding is very important, digital marketing, and skill enhancement. Marketing capacities of micro enterprises and traders of the products of MEs to get connected with the wider national and international market. We need to enhance our capacity in digital financing. We are working on this, and we have huge money transfer facilities, but digital financing is yet to take place in Bangladesh. And capacity of the MFIs, we have to enhance that in order to enable them to offer diversified financial products for micro enterprises like lease financing, startup capital financing, venture capital, and those kind of things. And we have to ensure access to money market by MFIs, because we need to, though in Bangladesh, the loan outstanding at grassroots level is about, in the microfinance sector, is close to $12 billion at the moment. but the scope is enormous. So we need to connect these MFIs to the money market. This is a challenge. We have to enact new law in order to do that. And we have Microcredit Regulatory Authority of Bangladesh. Recently, they started piloting a CIB, but we need to have a well-functioning credit information bureau in Bangladesh so that we can avoid overlapping. And we need to transform the business clusters, micro-enterprise. We have mapped about close to 10,000 business clusters in Bangladesh, and we need to transform them in micro-industries. That will be a challenge. And finally, we need to transfer climate smart technologies in Bangladesh. We are working on that. We have a climate change adaptation program. And final point is adhering to Bangladesh is a very populous country, densely populated country, and economic activity per square kilometer is also very intense. So adhering to social and environmental safeguard framework will be very challenging in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kader. Very interesting presentation. Really impressive, the diverse array of interventions that you have in Bangladesh, and same the presentation from Egypt. I would like to pass the floor now to our discussant, to Aline. Maybe before we go to the Q&A, Aline, if you can reflect on your experience. We've seen these two really great presentations from Egypt and Bangladesh with different entry points and different, like combos for components. So how the World Bank can actually support these decisions in terms of, like going with this population, taking up these different intervention, and what's the importance for you in your own experience to locate these programs under these entry points, these bigger umbrellas that we discussed at the beginning, and we can see that there are different entry points in both cases. So I will leave it to you, Aline, maybe for 5 minutes to reflect on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. And thank you so much to our speakers. Your presentations are very inspiring and illustrate extremely well, I think, the challenges that we're facing as we're trying to go from a boutique approach where we've proven the concept can work on very small samples, on very small groups, with programs that are superbly managed, right? Which are managed on a very small scale by very dedicated team of implementers. And the challenge is, how do we go from that to a scale that's much bigger and that will, by definition, have a lower quality, right? Because it will have to rely on existing institutions, on existing people, on existing agreements that you might have with networks, and some of them are, average. And I guess on average, they are average, right? So how do we go from a boutique where we have the best quality and the best motivation to a scale where we have to rely on existing capacity? And I think the presentations you have are extremely important, and they show to us that to do that, you've done, I guess, 3 things. One is you rely on existing programs to save money, right? So you rely on the Tekaful program in Egypt to finance the regular transfer, and you add to it the other components. In Bangladesh, you rely on the existing micro lending systems that you have in place, and you add the other components. And I think this is why, in a way, the way to scale up is to kind of piggyback or use existing architectures, existing programs, whether it's financial, whether it's livelihood, or whether it's social safety net, or any other programs in that range. So this is a question of saving money, I think, but it's also a question of using existing systems. If you have a payment system in place under your safety net program, you use the same one. You have a registry, like in the case of Egypt, you start from that registry. You don't have to reinvent it. So I think there are savings, financial savings, but also the fact that you use this existing infrastructure, I think, is also critical to boost people's trust in your program. Because you've had 5 years to build a trust in Tekaful, people understand that registry, they know what it is, and they will trust it when you use it to select your beneficiaries. Similarly with a PKSF, because the public knows how you reach out and you identify your clients, they trust the process as well. So I think it's not only a question of saving money or a question of procedures and operations, it's also a question of trust. And that's why it's so critical to embed these programs within existing programs, existing institutions that have built that trust. So to me, this is a really important lesson I extract from both your presentations, although they come from very different cases. I think the other part, and maybe that's where we're all struggling most, is the political part. I think we're still not quite able to show how these programs fit within a big effort, a national effort, what we can call a social contract, a national social contract of the country with its people, and that this is one part of it. And I think the best way to sell that one part of it is to sell it as being part of that broader system. So you don't pretend it's going to solve all the problems. You don't pretend it's going to be for everybody or for all types of people. You just explain how it plays a role in that chain of programs and support that a government has, from social assistance to support to bigger firms, to support to pensioners, to support to the disabled. You are one piece of a system. You are a critical piece. And in a way, to me, this is what I'm still kind of seeing in many countries struggling with. We all want to sell our little program and justify its existence and ask for it to grow, but we fail to kind of position it within that broader. So to me, that's the lesson I'm also hearing from your presentation. And then in terms of your first question, Hugo, as to what the World Bank can do to help, I mean, I think our collaboration in different countries vary tremendously. Right? In some contexts, our function is mostly to put people in touch with other people, right? So we'll put the government colleagues in touch with those of other countries or those of other institutions, whether they're development partners or research organizations or other practitioners. And our job here is just as a broker to help identify the best examples that are relevant for a particular government's question. In some other countries, we provide technical grants that help the government do the kind of initial analysis that's needed to think it through. What is the profile of my population? What is the type of amounts I should put? What is the existing markets? Both the presenters talked about the market analysis. So sometimes we provide small technical grants to help do that groundwork before that will inform the decision. Other times we provide much more significant financing through our projects, which are credits or grants to the government, which then allow the government to really implement at a very significant scale already, and hopefully then demonstrate and build into that effort an evaluation process so that we can demonstrate that it works at scale and make a case for politicians to adopt it and the communities to adopt it. And then another area I think where the bank can help sometimes is also to help bring consensus, right? So sometimes it is difficult for a social development department to talk to the Minister of Finance. But maybe the World Bank can help you have that conversation as well, because we have entries at different levels. Or it might be difficult sometimes to bring various development partners together, or to bring the private sector on board. And sometimes our role can also be that of a broker. Hugo, I will stop here, and I will look forward to listening to the question and answers. And I want to thank both our presenters again for very, very stimulating presentations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aline. I'm cognizant that we're running out of time, but I wanted to still reflect a little bit of the Q&A that we've been having in the chat box. So I'm gonna maybe pose one question for each, and if you can very rapidly touch on your reflections, maybe just like for 1 minute. I think maybe first let's go with Mr. Kader. There is one question about the community organizations and the cooperatives, how you work in partnership with them. But I would like to also maybe take advantage of the question to ask you to reflect a little bit on the very first initial stages when you were actually deciding on, like we're going to do this sort of model, this sort of component and interventions, like what was the rationale behind of, like working, for example, with these cooperatives? That would be for Mr. Kader. For Dr. Atef, there is one question also related to defining the different avenues in terms of, like going for self-employment for some beneficiaries, or going for like a more active job searching type of activity? How did you decide that? Again, taking the step back in terms of, like when we were thinking about putting this program up at the very beginning. And finally, for Aline, there is one interesting question about inclusion and exclusion errors. I don't know whether maybe, Aline, you could touch a little bit on that based on your experience. And I would take it also to the fact of, like social registries. How important, or maybe, necessary are social registries to have a strong social registry in advance of scaling up these economic or productive inclusion interventions? So I will give 1 minute, please, to each of you, starting with Mr. Kader, Dr. Atef, and Aline. You're muted, Mr. Kader.
Sorry. Basically, what we do, we intervene in the natural business clusters. Wherever there is a natural business cluster, it reflects that that particular geographical location has got comparative advantage in producing that particular product. And we then look into the potential, whether this particular business cluster can absorb technology, new technology, whether it has got a growth potential. And if it has got growth potential, if it is not, if it's a promising sector, then we intervene with various kind of complementary services, value chain development services, value chain strengthening services, I would rather say. And then we start transferring different kind of technologies, training, and other things, so that they can scale up, they can transform from micro enterprise, they can eventually transform into micro industry. That is the dream, ultimately. So the main key idea is find the comparative advantage of that particular geographical location, identify the micro enterprises, and form them in formal groups. We don't promote formal cooperatives, which we have got better experience from various other reasons. So these are all non-formal cooperatives, not cooperatives, I'll rather say, we call in Bangladesh Shomiti kind of groups, informal solidarity group, kind of quasi-cooperative, you can call them. And then all the ventures are individual ventures. So these are not cooperatives, these are individual ventures. Okay, and then as a result, we intervene with the lead micro entrepreneurs so that others can follow them with that, and the access to finance is always there. So this is the whole idea.
Thank you, Dr. Atef.
For the good question of having this between the self-employment and wage employment. In fact, we did 3 stages, just to make it clear. The first, that we did a rapid market assessment in the area where we will be intervening. So we know well what are the major economic activities which are existing in the localities where the beneficiary are. So if we do have an extensive economic activity, industrial zone, factories, places where they are employing, so we have a potential of wage employment. So once we do that, this is the first level. So once we do the behavior change session, we bring people to the session. We give them a nudge session where we incentivize them, but as well as giving them information. So if we do have, we give information regarding the whole structure of Forza program, all the service provider, people know it from day one. So they know that if they are looking for a job, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4 other steps. In case we are located in an area where we have wage employment, like job offers and job opportunities are existing bluntly, so we can force the session to tell them about the forces so we have in this area that we can link you to the factories and we can bring the job and make the job placement. So this is the second. The third one is people who are manifesting their interest to be wage employed, we do profiling for them. So we do a full-fledged career counseling. Well, we start by profiling their background, their what they are doing in life, what they can do as hobbies, as craft, whatever. And all of this is in the third level, we finalize by the end of the career counseling, directing them because they are able, they have the skills, they are in the area where they are, we have a sufficient number of jobs. So that structure at 3 steps is based on the localities where there are jobs. That's why I mentioned in design, we have 6 governorates in the Upper Egypt where all areas are rural. We have 2 governorates in the Delta where we have the industrial agglomeration of Egyptian industry. So we bring some governorates where we have plenty of jobs and others to make them to be able to offer the offers of the jobs and self-employment as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Atef. Aline, last words with you.
Thank you so much. I think on the question of the social registry, I think a registry is a very good starting point. It's a good infrastructure to have and to start from, because it avoids having, every time you have a new program, having to go back and to list everybody and to then identify among that list. So it's a good starting point, but it's not the only instrument. And as Mr. Atef was explaining, you know, it's combined with other mechanisms to identify your beneficiaries. And these other mechanisms can be, well, first of all, as a program, you have a series of criteria that you apply to that social registry. You're looking for all those who comply with a certain set of criteria. And it's up to you to define your criteria, because if you know, not all programs are for everybody. Then you can add, you know, self-motivation, as in the case of Egypt, or you could add a community validation process that, you know, helps the community weigh in as to who should be selected, or you could add a series of other processes. So it's a good basis. It's not the only instrument, but it's a very important one that is a great inclusion mechanism, because once someone is in the list of that social registry, that person or that household can be considered for all programs. And those most excluded ones, you know, once they're in that registry, I think it's a good way to include them. The main challenge is to make sure that they are in the registry, right? And I think it's very challenging for registries to reach out those that are the most isolated. It's like all the time, it's easier to reach the closer ones, or the ones that are more engaged, or that are more socially literate, that are more connected with the community. And it's much harder to involve and to include those that are marginal by nature in their own communities. And I think the key for a social registry to play that role of a backbone is 2 things. One, that it includes all. And so that means that registries have to make an incredibly strong effort to find those that their own communities isolate. And the second one is that it has to be maintained up to date. Now, it doesn't mean we need to update income information every week, because unfortunately the situation of those in the most dire poverty or vulnerability situations doesn't change that fast, but it needs to be up to date enough that it's still relevant for the programming. And I know there's a lot of publications and training sessions on these issues, and maybe Ugo, at some point you could share with the participants a couple of references in that matter. Thank you very much.
Certainly, Aline. No, thanks everybody. Thank you first to our great panel. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we run into our next parallel session, we would like to also give you a quick evaluation template to assess this session. We hope you enjoyed it. So please, before you run into the next, if you can rapidly just populate that. And thanks again. Thank you very much. We were very happy to have you all here, and especially thank you to Dr. Atef, Mr. Kader, and Aline also for joining us today. So that will be all, and we will follow up in